Hi, I'm Jay from Sophos Support, and today I'll be talking about email and how it works. The email process revolves around an SMTP client and server. An SMTP client, also the sender of the email, loads an email onto the SMTP server. This is achieved through an email program such as Microsoft Outlook. From here, the SMTP server contacts the DNS server and searches for the IP address of the destination SMTP server, which holds the address for the recipient of the email. Once found, the target SMTP server will temporarily store the email in its message store. Lastly, the recipient SMTP client will download the email either via IMAP or POP3. With that said, let's talk about email protocols. Email consists of three protocols: Internet Message Access Protocol, known as IMAP, Post Office Protocol 3, known as POP3, and Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, known as SMTP. Each of these protocols have their different applications. We'll mainly be talking about SMTP since it is mostly used for mail server communication. However, SMTP does work alongside POP3 and IMAP, which are used by email clients to retrieve emails from servers. The topics we'll discuss will revolve around the basics of SMTP, the connection process, SMTP commands and status codes, as well as an example session. Common ports and addresses for different mail providers are shown in this table here. SMTP commonly uses port 25 for email communication. However, SMTP can also utilize several other ports. Mail exchange records, also known as MX records, are DNS records that play a crucial role in the email delivery process. They specify the mail servers that are responsible for receiving email on behalf of a domain. When you send an email, SMTP uses these MX records to determine where to deliver the email for the recipient's domain. Before we get into the SMTP connection process, I'll go over a few important terms. Mail User Agent, or MUA, is the agent which receives email, such as Microsoft Outlook. Mail Delivery Agent, or MDA, is the IP address of the target SMTP server being searched for, which stores the recipient address of the emails. Mail Transfer Agent, or MTA, is the SMTP server that sends the email to the MDA for delivery. The SMTP client, also known as the sender, loads the email onto the SMTP server of the respective email provider. This is done through a webmail application in a browser or an email program, also known as the MUA. Now that the email is loaded, the SMTP server contacts the DNS server, which then searches for the IP address of the target SMTP server or mail delivery agent. Once found, it stores the IP for the recipient address of the email. The SMTP server then sends the email to the MDA via one or more MTAs. Each of these forwarding processes runs according to the SMTP protocol. The MDA server temporarily stores the email in the message store. Lastly, the recipient MUA downloads the email either via IMAP or POP3. The interaction between the SMTP client and the SMTP server mentioned in the first step of the SMTP procedure represents the actual SMTP session. Each session consists of a sequence of SMTP commands from the client and responds in the form of status codes from the server. The common SMTP commands used during this exchange are hello or elo. This initiates the SMTP conversation and identifies the sender's domain. Elo, extended hello, is an enhanced version of the hello command and provides additional capabilities. Mail from. This specifies the sender's email address, indicating who is sending the email. RCPT2. This specifies the recipient's email address, indicating who the email is intended for. Data. This signals the start of the message data. The actual email content, including headers and body, follow this command. RSET. This resets the current state of the SMTP session, clearing the recipient and sender information. VRFY. This verifies the validity of an email address on the recipient's server. During the troubleshooting process of SMTP, you'll come across status codes. Status codes are a 3-digit numeric code that provide information about the outcome of interactions between SMTP servers during email communication. These are always presented by the receiving MTA to inform the sender of what to do with an email delivery attempt. There are a significant number of status codes or even custom statuses, so there's no need to memorize each code. It is, however, important to understand the meaning of the general syntax used. 200 series, successful. These codes indicate that the server has successfully completed the requested action. Examples of this are 220, which means the server is ready for an SMTP session. 250, the requested email action was OK and completed. 251, the user is not local and it will forward to the forwarding path. 300 series, which is for intermediate response. These codes indicate that the server understands the request but requires further action before completing it. An example is 354, start mail input and end with a period. 400 series are for transient failure. These codes indicate a temporary issue that might be resolved in the future and that the sender can try again later. Examples are 421, the service wasn't available and will close the transmission channel. 450, the requested email action was not taken as the mailbox is unavailable. 452, the requested action was not taken because there is insufficient system storage. Moving on, we have the 500 series, which stands for permanent failure. These codes indicate that the email delivery has failed and will not be retried. Examples are 500, syntax error, the command entered was unrecognized. 501, syntax error in your parameters or arguments. And 550, the requested action was not taken as the mailbox is unavailable. Now that we understand the process of SMTP and how it works, let's go over an example session. The first thing we see after establishing a connection is that the SMTP server answers with a 220 code, which means that it's ready. The client then responds with a hello, logging in with its host name. The server sends back a 250 code, meaning that the mail action is okay and confirming the login. The client then starts to specify the sender address of the MUA with a mail from command. The server gives back another 250 code. The client then specifies the recipient address with an RCPT2. The server 250 code means that we're still okay. The client then initiates the email transmission with a data command. The server now responds with a 354, which means that the server will start mail input. The client can now input email text. The important part here is that the email ends with a period. This indicates the end of the message. The server responds with a 250. This means that it has successfully received the email and puts it into a queue. The client sends a quit command, signaling the end of a session. The server finally responds with a 221, which ends the connection. With all of this covered, you should now have a solid foundation and understanding of how mail flow works between clients, as well as the SMTP protocol and how to interpret its data. I hope you found this video useful. Check out the relevant resources for this video in the description. For further assistance, view and post questions on community.sophos.com and go to techvids.sophos.com for more great videos like this one. Thanks for watching!